Hello everybody, and thank you for joining me. This is Ciara from Ciara T Designs, and today I have this really pretty pink and gold perspective butterfly birthday 5x7 card. So let's jump right in. So I'm going to create my 5x7 base. So obviously I'm going to cut it down to 7 inches and then this side to 10. That's the easiest way I've found to make these bases. Obviously, there's no right or wrong way, but I kind of found this the easiest. And I also brought out my rotary trimmer for this just because it cuts longer things. A 12x12 trimmer would also work. I generally don't use my smaller trimmer for 5x7 just because I can't measure that out, and I do want my base to actually be the right size. And then I'm also going to cut down a panel of HammerMill Cardstock that I'm going to blend on, as well as a piece of, I think it's Tonic's gold pearl cardstock. And I cut those to be this piece being the panel that I'm actually going to color on will be slightly smaller than the mat that I'm going to create out of this gold piece. The exact measurements, you guys know that I'm not great at that. I'm pretty sure it's about a quarter of an inch smaller. But again, I rarely measure them, so it's always kind of a little bit of a guesstimate when I do this. But yeah, so it's about that. I just want a thin, like, layering effect, so I don't have too much of any of the layers popping out. It just kind of gives you this really pretty effect. So you can see it's quite thin. And then I'm going to fold my base. So obviously I'm going to score it at the 5-inch mark. I should have probably brought out my 12x12 scoreboard. It would have been a little easier than having to twist it over. And then it didn't quite score properly, so I have a little bit of excess. So here you see me kind of having to finagle it a little bit to get the score line where I want it. So it would have obviously, again, been easier had I brought out my 12x12 scoreboard, but this one sits on my desk, so I do have a tendency to grab it instead of my bigger one when I am working on stuff like cards. But you live and you learn. I fixed it, so it wasn't really a big deal, but it would have been easier, and probably I wouldn't have accidentally scored it wrong if I had used my bigger one. But so now I'm going to blend on my 4 Distress Oxide ink colors. I'm sorry, the camera is going to jiggle a bit. I speed this part up because you guys would be super bored if you had to sit here and watch me blend for, a good 5-10 minutes. So I have it sped up. But that, of course, my camera is my phone, and my phone's attached to my desk, and so the phone's just going to jiggle a little bit. So sorry about that. So for my 4 colors that I used here, I went in the pink family, but you could use any color family for this as long as you kind of went in shades of the same family. So I went with Spun Sugar, Kitsch Flamingo, Worn Lipstick, and Picked Raspberry. And I like to use my domed foams for blending. I find them the easiest to get a smooth blend between colors. Again, obviously, preference can be up to you. This is just an easier way for me to get a really nice blend between the colors. I find that because the foam is domed, that when I set it down on the paper, it doesn't ever give me harsh lines, which I then have to fight to blend out. So this is just kind of the way I've found blending to be the easiest, but you could do this in so many different ways. I mean, I've done backgrounds similar-ish to this where I use sprays. So it can be done with different mediums in different ways, but I do kind of go back to blending. Blending oxides have to be probably one of my first loves in the crafting world. If you've been with my channel for a while, you know that I love oxide ink blending. It is probably my favorite technique. It's my tried and true. I go back to it constantly because it just gives beautiful results, and I'm always really happy with how it comes out. So, but this could be achieved in a few different ways with different inks as well. Whatever you like to work with, as long as they're in the same color family, so that you don't have, but I have done these with different color families too. So, I mean, whatever makes you happy. This design is just super pretty. So it came together beautifully. And then I did splash on just a little bit of water from my Distress sprayer because I wanted some extra texture in the background, because the only piece really in this design is this stunning butterfly. I just wanted a little bit more interest in the background. If you don't like that look, again, you don't need to add it. The blended background is beautiful on its own. I just kind of like this more slightly whimsical effect, and it looks like there's just these beautiful sparkles behind the butterfly. So I do tend towards that, but completely up to you. Just an added effect that I think looks really pretty. So then I ran the perspective butterfly through my switch. This is a Tim Holtz die. It's very large, as you can see. And I did have to run it through more than once. Here I'm showing you that it didn't quite cut out the detail on the bottom. This is a very, very detailed die, which is why you can see that I have my chrome plate going through with my base and my top plate, just because I needed that to get the really good cut on this super intricate die. And then the easiest way I've found so far with this specific die is I like to poke out the extra bits while it's still in the die. I mean, it doesn't matter if it comes out nicely on its own, but if you're struggling to get it out a little bit, I find that if I poke out the extra bits, so here you can see that I'm taking out all of the parts that don't belong in the die. I haven't actually tried to remove the die itself yet. I'm just poking out the parts that need to come out anyway. And then you'll see when I get, all of the ones that are kind of sitting here out, I'm just going to slowly and gently use my pokey tool, the craft pick you see me working with, and I'm going to gently make it really large, bring it out of its the protection there, and then I'm going to, you can see here, just gently start to lift out the die my cardstock from the die. You don't have to do this. This is kind of just my way that I found easiest with super intricate dies, to not either have the cardstock rip or alternatively have it bend really badly. So when you go to try to adhere it, it's kind of wrinkled. So I find this really works well. You can see here now that it's pretty much flat. It looks perfect and beautiful. I love it. And it came out really easily with just a little bit of, finicky poking. But I find that the easiest way to get out this super intricate die. So yeah, and then I brought in a Simon Says Stamp Beautiful Bouquet stamp. This says happy birthday, because I usually make thank you or happy birthday cards unless I have something specific that needs to be made. And I thought this would just be a stunning birthday card. So I brought in the panel and the butterfly just for placement purposes, so that I'd know kind of where I needed my sentiment to be. And now I chose to put it on the bottom. Just because I honestly think that it looks the best with how I've laid out this design. But because I'm going to white heat emboss it, it isn't super easy to see in the camera where the white embossing powder is, because spun sugar is so light. You can see it in person beautifully, but it is a little bit harder to see on camera. So just be aware of that. It's easy to see in person. It's just, it's not like it's hidden or anything. It just, white on very bright pink or very light pink can be a bit difficult to see. So so I'm just going to heat emboss that so that it's nice and smooth and melted. And I did choose to do white simply because I have white on my base, and I thought it would be a really pretty color to not add more colors, because I really want pink and gold to be the focus, but I need my sentiment. So I just chose to white heat emboss to kind of reflect that white base that's already in the design without adding extra colors in. But you could do it in a pink too if you wanted to. That would definitely be an option as well. This is just kind of what I went with because white was already there. And then I'm going to start to adhere it. So you kind of saw where I wanted to lay it down. So I'm kind of guessing where I need my glue. And I am adding a very small amount, but all over the place, so that I can easily adhere it and not have parts stick up. But I did try to keep a little bit away from the edge so that it wouldn't try to adhere to my glass mat, though it wouldn't matter, easy to clean up. And then here you can see I just flipped it over to add it to the areas that I didn't add glue to before, just so that it would lay down nicely, because I am going to cut the wing off. And I know some people struggle with that. Totally fair. You would have to make a very large custom envelope if you weren't going to cut the wing off for this design. But I think that it looks better with the wing cut off, just because it kind of frames it in and just gives you, again, perspective, right? That was the whole idea, as far as I understand, behind how Tim Holtz designed or had this die made, was that you could use any part of it and have it still be stunning. So I chose to cut the wing off, though generally I don't like to do that very much. I kind of like the whole design, but I think for this design it looks really pretty and it worked out really well. I'm sorry if I'm a bit rambly, guys. I came home from work and I'm a bit tired, so I'm trying to get this done so I can go to bed. But back to work tomorrow. I should time my stuff a little bit better, but I do find I struggle a little bit to find a good work balance with everything that I'm trying to do on the side. So yeah, so bear with me. I'm sorry if this voiceover was a bit rambly or it was a bit confusing. If you ever have any questions, please leave them in the comments for me. I always answer everything. Sometimes it takes me a little bit of time. I am a little bit behind at the moment, but I will sit down very soon and I will, respond to all the comments and any questions that anybody's asked. I will respond to them. So if you ever have a question, please leave it down below for me so I can answer it. So I just covered the background in my thin foam tape from Simon Says Stamp. This roll is huge. I've had it forever. It is just super, super thin, so you get a ton of it, but it doesn't add a ton of bulk. It just gives you some dimension, which I love. There's no other dimension in this. I did consider popping up my butterfly and then chose not to because it's so delicate that I didn't really want to have to try to put a whole bunch of layers together. You absolutely could. It would look stunning. I chose not to. But also a thing I love about this foam tape is it's pretty forgiving. You're going to see me lay this down and pick it up, I think twice, because I didn't get it centered. But because I hadn't pushed it down, it had no issues coming back up and letting me kind of center it better. So I do like that it is a bit forgiving as well. But once you've got it centered and you like where it is, once you've pressed it down, it's not coming back up, right? It's as long as you haven't pressed it down at this point, it's actually pretty easy to line up again and then press everything down so that it looks good. And of course, because I, can't leave anything alone, I had to add some pearls. I brought in my Satin Blanc pearls and just kind of adhered those, a couple around the sentiment and a couple around the butterfly, just for added sparkle and shine. It just makes me happy when things have, really pretty sparkles on them. So I do tend towards them. And I think that it also just kind of helps finish up the design, in my opinion. So yeah, so that is the card I have for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you're considering leaving me a like, leave me a comment, and consider subscribing if you haven't already. I do new videos every Monday and Thursday, and I did adhere the rest of the wing on the inside of the card there I just showed you. So thank you so much, guys, and I will see you again very soon. Bye bye for now.